Hey Reddit. I never thought I'd be posting here, but life has a way of smacking you in the face when you least expect it. So here I am. My name's Mike, I'm 34, and I've been married to Jenna, 31, for 7 years. We met in college, fell hard and fast, and built what I thought was a solid life together. We've got a sweet little daughter, Emily, who's 4. She's the light of my life. On the surface, Jenna and I seemed like the perfect couple. She's smart, driven, and honestly, the backbone of our family. She's always been ambitious, climbing her way up the corporate ladder while I focused on building my own small business. I was proud of her, you know. She worked hard and deserved the success. At least, that's what I believed. But lately things have felt off. Jenna started coming home late more often, blaming work. "We're in the middle of a big project," she'd say, brushing me off when I asked questions. She's always been a workaholic, so I didn't think much of it at first. But then there were the excuses, team dinners, early morning meetings, networking events that seemed to come out of nowhere. Then there was the phone. Jenna's never been glued to her phone, but now she's on it constantly. And not just on it, guarding it. She keeps it on silent, never leaves it lying around, and takes it with her even when she's just going to the bathroom. I told myself I was being paranoid. I mean, she's my wife. We've been through thick and thin together, and we've always trusted each other. But there was this nagging feeling I couldn't shake, like an itch I couldn't scratch. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but something isn't right. I feel like I'm walking around with a knot in my stomach all the time. Have any of you been in a situation like this? How do you even start to figure out what's going on without coming off like a jealous idiot? I guess I'm just looking for some advice, or maybe just someone to tell me I'm not crazy. Thanks for reading. First update. Alright, so I took some of the advice I got from my last post, thanks, by the way, and decided I wasn't going to jump to conclusions. If Jenna was acting weird, maybe she was stressed or overwhelmed with work. That's normal, right? But then something happened last week that flipped my world upside down. It started with Jenna mentioning, casually over dinner, that she'd have to fly out to Chicago for a few days for a training conference. She said it like it was no big deal, but my gut was screaming that something wasn't adding up. Why would she only mention it 2 days before? She's usually meticulous about planning, even telling me weeks in advance when she has local work dinners. I decided I wasn't going to sit around stewing in suspicion. If something shady was going on, I'd find out. The night before her trip, I had a friend, Ryan, come over. He's been my buddy since high school and knows me better than anyone. I told him everything, how things just didn't feel right with Jenna lately, and about the sudden Chicago trip. Ryan, being Ryan, smirked and said, "Dude, follow her. Just do it. Worst case scenario, you look stupid. Best case? You're not crazy." At first, I thought he was joking, but the idea stuck. By the next morning, I was convincing myself that this wasn't crazy, it was proactive. So, when Jenna left for her flight, I left too. I didn't tell her where I was going, just kissed her goodbye like everything was fine and then drove to the airport. I parked a few rows away from her car, grabbed my bag, and followed her into the terminal, staying just far enough back that she wouldn't notice. And this is where things started to get weird. Jenna wasn't flying to Chicago. She walked up to a check-in counter for a flight heading to Dallas. I know this because I checked the signboard, my stomach sinking as I realized she'd lied. My mind was racing, trying to figure out why she'd make up such a random lie. Was it a work thing after all, but she didn't want me to know where she was going? Or was it something worse? I couldn't back out now. I bought a last-minute ticket on the same flight, thank you, credit card points, and made my way onto the plane, sitting a few rows behind her. She had no idea I was there. When we landed in Dallas, she didn't call an Uber or wait for a car service. Instead, she walked straight into the airport's luxury hotel lobby. She greeted someone, a tall guy in a sharp suit, who was already waiting there. He stood up as she approached and gave her a hug that lingered just a second too long. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. It wasn't just any random dude either. I recognized him. His name is Mark, her boss. I'd met him a couple of times at company parties. He was the type of guy who looked like he walked out of a cologne ad, charming, confident, a little too smooth for his own good. They didn't check in together, at least not publicly. Jenna grabbed her room key from the desk and disappeared into the elevator. Mark followed a few minutes later, carrying only a backpack. Now, I didn't follow them up to the rooms, I'm not that insane. But I did book a room for myself, just to be close enough to see if anything else happened. And oh boy, it did. Around 10 p.m., I went down to the hotel bar to grab a drink and maybe calm my nerves. Guess who walks in together, looking all cozy and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world? Yep, Jenna and Mark. They took a corner table, ordered drinks, and stayed there for hours. At one point, she reached across the table and touched his hand. My heart felt like it was about to pound out of my chest. I wanted to storm over there, to demand answers, but I stopped myself. I didn't want to blow up without having all the facts. I stayed at the bar until they left. I didn't follow them, but let's be real, I didn't need to. I had seen enough. Now I'm back home, and Jenna's still in Chicago. She called earlier today, acting like everything was totally normal, telling me how her training was going well and how she missed Emily and me. I played along, but inside I'm boiling. Part of me wants to confront her the second she walks through the door, but another part of me feels like I need to dig deeper. There's clearly more to this, and I don't know if I'm ready for the truth yet. Alright, Reddit. I'm back, and things have officially spiraled into a place I can't even wrap my head around. If I thought seeing Jenna and Mark together was bad, what happened next feels like some soap opera nonsense. Only it's my actual life. So, I spent the next couple of days pretending everything was fine. Jenna came back from her Chicago trip, smiling and cheerful, like she didn't have a care in the world. She even brought Emily a stuffed bear from the airport gift shop, because of course she did. I played the supportive husband, nodding along as she told me about the workshops and keynote speakers. Every word out of her mouth felt like a knife. But the real bomb dropped last night. It started with an unmarked envelope left on my desk in the office. I run my small business from home, so I'm in and out of the office all day. Around 6 p.m., I walked in and found it sitting there, right in the middle of the desk. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in shaky handwriting. I opened it, and inside were photos. Not just any photos, photos of Jenna and Mark, together at the hotel. One showed them at the bar, laughing like they were on a romantic date. Another showed them holding hands as they walked through the lobby. The last one, the one that made me feel like the floor had dropped out from under me, was of Mark leaning over and kissing her on the cheek while they waited for the elevator. I stared at those pictures for what felt like hours, my hands shaking so bad I nearly tore them in half. Who had sent them? How did they know? And why? At first, I thought maybe someone at the hotel had seen them and decided to play private investigator. But the angles were too deliberate, too well-timed. Whoever took these wasn't just snapping random shots. They were following Jenna and Mark, watching them the way I had been. The envelope came with a note too. Just 4 words, scribbled in the same shaky handwriting. You deserve to know. That was it. No signature, no explanation. I was reeling, trying to piece it all together, when Jenna walked in. She leaned on the doorframe, looking at me with that same smile that used to make me melt but now just makes me sick. Hey, what's up? You've been quiet today. I couldn't even look at her. I shoved the envelope and photos into my desk drawer and mumbled something about work being stressful. She didn't press, just nodded and said dinner would be ready soon. The casualness of it all nearly sent me over the edge. After she left, I grabbed my phone and started texting Ryan, the only person I trust to help me figure this out. Before I could hit send, though, something clicked in my head. Whoever took those photos wasn't just some random stranger. They knew Jenna, and they knew me. Then another thought hit me like a freight train. What if Jenna knew about the envelope? What if this was some kind of twisted game? I went back to the photos, studying them more closely. One of the shots, the one with Mark kissing her cheek, was taken from a low angle, like whoever took it was hiding. My stomach churned. This wasn't just some casual observer. Someone had been stalking them, and now they were dragging me into the mess. I spent the rest of the night pacing around the house, avoiding Jenna like the plague. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. Every time she spoke, I felt like I was seconds away from screaming at her, but I held it together. Barely. This morning, I woke up determined to get to the bottom of it. I went to the office, pulled out the photos again, and started searching for anything that might give me a clue. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. In the background of one of the photos, reflected in a glass door, was the faint outline of a person holding a camera. It was blurry, but there was something disturbingly familiar about their posture, the way they were crouched low, half hidden behind a potted plant. It hit me like a lightning bolt. Ryan. I grabbed my phone and called him, my heart pounding in my chest. When he picked up, he sounded groggy, like I'd woken him up. "Hey man, what's up? What's up?" I practically shouted. "Did you follow Jenna to Dallas? Did you take those photos?" There was a long pause, and I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. Finally, he sighed. "Mike, you weren't supposed to find out this way." I couldn't believe it. "Are you serious right now? What the hell, Ryan? You've been spying on my wife? She's not who you think she is," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I didn't want to tell you until I had proof, but, man, she's been lying to you for months. I couldn't sit back and watch her do this to you." My head was spinning. "How long have you known?" "Since the spring," he admitted. "I saw them together at a restaurant downtown. It didn't look like a work meeting, so I started keeping tabs. When she mentioned the Chicago trip, I knew something was up. I couldn't let you go on thinking she was innocent." I hung up without saying another word. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped the phone. Ryan was right about one thing. Jenna wasn't who I thought she was. But now I'm left wondering who else is hiding things from me. If my best friend was capable of pulling something like this, what else am I blind to? The worst part? I'm starting to think this rabbit hole goes deeper than I ever imagined. Alright, Reddit, buckle up because things just took another turn, and I'm not sure whether I'm losing my grip or finally seeing the bigger picture. After the phone call with Ryan, I was furious, at him, at Jenna, at myself for being caught in this mess. But a part of me couldn't shake what he said. She's not who you think she is. The next morning, I decided to do some digging of my own. Jenna had left for work like nothing was wrong, kissing me on the cheek as she grabbed her coffee. "Don't work too hard," she said with a smirk. I forced a smile, but inside, I felt like I was standing on a landmine, waiting for it to blow. Once she was gone, I went straight to her home office. Jenna worked partially remote, and her desk was always cluttered with papers, sticky notes, and random documents. I told myself I was just looking for reassurance, something to prove Ryan wrong, or at least show me I wasn't completely losing it. Instead, I found something unexpected. Her laptop was locked, but Jenna's old work notebook was sitting on the desk, half open. It was filled with messy handwriting, meeting notes, brainstorming ideas, that sort of thing. But tucked in the back cover was a folded piece of paper, hidden almost too carefully. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. It was a printout of a corporate email, dated a few months ago. The subject line read, "Promotion Strategy Follow-Up." It was addressed to Jenna and a few other employees, including her boss, Mark. Nothing about it seemed weird at first glance, but when I read further, I realized something was off. There was a list of names at the bottom, people who were, in contention, for some big promotion at her company. Jenna's name wasn't on it. What was there, though, was a handwritten note scrawled in the margin in red ink. I recognized Mark's handwriting from company Christmas cards and thank you notes Jenna had brought home over the years. It read, "Let's discuss Jenna's potential separately. Meet in person." I sat down, staring at the note, my mind racing. Separately? Why would her boss need to discuss her potential off the record? And why hadn't she told me about this promotion in the first place? Before I could process it fully, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My stomach dropped. Jenna was back early. I shoved the paper into my pocket, closed the notebook, and grabbed a random document off the desk to make it look like I was reviewing tax stuff. When she walked in, she looked surprised to see me there. "Hey," she said cautiously. "What are you doing in my office?" "Looking for last year's W-2. I lied, holding up the random paper. Her eyes narrowed, and for a second, I thought she'd call me out. But then she shrugged and dropped her bag on the chair. "I've got a headache. I'm going to lie down for a bit before my next call." She left the room, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That night, after Jenna went to bed, I pulled out the paper again and read it over and over, trying to make sense of it. I thought about texting Ryan, but I couldn't bring myself to. He was already tangled up in this mess, and I didn't know if I could trust him anymore. Instead, I did something I've never done before. I drove to Jenna's office building. I know how it sounds, paranoid, crazy, but I couldn't sit at home waiting for answers to magically appear. Her company had one of those sleek, modern headquarters downtown, all glass walls and open spaces. When I parked across the street, I didn't expect to see much. It was late, after all. But then I noticed something. The office wasn't empty. Lights were still on in the top-floor conference room, and through the glass, I could see two figures inside. Even from the street, I could tell one of them was Mark. He had this unmistakable way of standing, like he was always the most important person in the room. The other person? I couldn't tell at first. But then she stepped closer to the window, and my chest tightened. It was Jenna. They were standing close, too close. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language spoke volumes. She looked tense, like she was pleading with him about something, while he leaned casually against the table, nodding slowly. I grabbed my phone and snapped a couple of photos, my hands shaking as I zoomed in. Just as I hit the button, Mark turned toward the window, and for a split second, I swear he looked straight at me. I ducked down in my car like an idiot, my heart pounding. After a few minutes, I peeked out the window. The lights were off, and the conference room was empty. I drove home in silence, the photos burning a hole in my phone. When I got back, Jenna was already asleep, her face peaceful as if nothing in the world was wrong. I stood in the doorway, staring at her, my emotions swinging between rage and disbelief. What the hell is going on? Why is she meeting with her boss late at night, off the books? Why is she hiding things from me? And most importantly, why do I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of something much bigger? Reddit, I think I've officially crossed into a level of insanity I didn't know existed. After the late-night stakeout at Jenna's office, I spent the next day obsessing over those photos of her and Mark. I didn't confront her, yet. My gut was telling me that whatever is going on here, it's bigger than just Jenna lying to me. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get more twisted, the phone call happened. It was around 10 a.m., and Jenna had already left for work. I was trying to focus on emails for my business, but my mind kept wandering back to the weirdness of it all. My phone buzzed, and I nearly ignored it, but something made me glance at the screen. The number was blocked. Normally, I wouldn't bother picking up, but curiosity, or paranoia, got the better of me. "Hello?" I said, my voice cautious. For a moment, there was silence. Then a voice, a low, distorted one, spoke. "You're being lied to." I froze. "Who is this?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that your wife isn't who you think she is." My heart pounded in my chest. "If you've got something to say, say it." The voice chuckled, low and almost mocking. Let's just say she's been very dedicated to her career. You've seen the signs, haven't you? Late nights, secret meetings, trips that don't make sense? My mouth went dry. How do you know this? I know everything, Mike, the voice said. And so will you soon enough. If you want proof, go to the Blackwood Hotel tonight. Roommate 12. Before I could say anything else, the call disconnected. I sat there for a few minutes, staring at my phone, trying to process what just happened. Who the hell was that? How did they know about Jenna's weird behavior? And why the Blackwood Hotel? I wanted to dismiss it as a prank, but it felt too specific. Roommate 12? What kind of prank involves hotel room numbers? Against my better judgment, I decided I had to check it out. If there was even a chance that this was connected to Jenna, I needed to know. That evening, I told Jenna I had a late meeting with a client. She didn't seem fazed, just kissed me goodbye and told me not to wait up. The casualness of her reaction only fueled my suspicions. The Blackwood Hotel was downtown, about 15 minutes from our house. It wasn't the kind of place you notice unless you were looking for it, an older building tucked between two modern office towers. The lobby had a faded elegance, like it had seen better days, and the receptionist didn't even glance at me as I made my way to the elevator. I stood outside roommate 12 for what felt like forever, my heart racing. Was this a trap? A setup? What if someone was inside, waiting to jump me? Finally, I took a deep breath and knocked. No one answered. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I tried the door handle, half expecting it to be locked, but it clicked open. The room was empty. Or so I thought. There, on the desk by the window, was a manila envelope with my name scrawled across the front in bold, black letters. I walked in cautiously, half expecting someone to jump out of the shadows, but the room was silent. I picked up the envelope, my hands trembling, and opened it. Inside were more photos, dozens of them. Most were of Jenna and Mark, taken in various places, the office, the hotel bar I'd followed them to, even what looked like a private house party. Some of the photos were recent, like the ones I'd seen before, but others looked older. There were timestamps on the back of some of them, dating back nearly a year. But that wasn't all. There was also a typed letter and signed. Mike, you deserve the truth. Jenna's been playing you for a long time, and Mark isn't the only one involved. This goes deeper than you think. Keep digging, but be careful who you trust. Not everyone is on your side. I sat down on the bed, my mind spinning. What did they mean? Not the only one involved. Who else could possibly be part of this? And why would someone go to such lengths to send me this information anonymously? As I was putting the photos back into the envelope, my phone buzzed. Another blocked number. My hand shook as I answered. Did you get the package? The distorted voice asked. Yes, I said, my voice hoarse. Who are you? Why are you doing this? The voice chuckled again. Let's just say I have a vested interest in the truth coming out. You're not ready for everything yet, but you will be soon. For now, stay close to Jenna. Watch her. You'll see. See what? I demanded. You'll find out, the voice said cryptically. Then they hung up. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. Jenna was already asleep, her phone on the nightstand, the same way it always was. I stood there for a while, staring at her, wondering how much of our life was real and how much was a lie. Who sent me those photos? Why are they warning me? And what the hell am I about to uncover? I feel like I'm losing my grip on reality. Every step I take toward finding the truth just adds another layer of confusion, like I'm peeling back an onion made of lies. Last night was the worst yet, and I think I'm being followed. Let me back up. After I got the photos and the mysterious call, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jenna with Mark, laughing, touching his arm, looking at him in a way she hadn't looked at me in months. I told myself I'd wait until morning to figure out my next move, but around 2 a.m., something happened that made waiting impossible. I was sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the TV, when I heard a noise outside, soft footsteps on the driveway. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Then came the faint crunch of gravel, and my heart shot into my throat. I turned off the TV and peeked through the blinds. A dark figure was standing by my car, holding something in their hand. I couldn't make out their face, but they were wearing a hoodie pulled low over their head. I froze. Who the hell was this? They stood there for a moment, looking at the house like they were deciding whether to come closer. Then they dropped something on the windshield and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. For a few minutes, I just sat there, too stunned to move. Finally, I grabbed a flashlight and went outside. Whatever they'd left was fluttering in the wind, pinned under the wiper. It was another envelope. This one didn't have my name on it, just a single word scrawled across the front in the same shaky handwriting as before, soon. Inside were more photos, but this time, they weren't of Jenna. They were of me. There I was, sitting in my car outside the Blackwood Hotel, staring up at the building like some kind of stalker. Another showed me walking into the lobby. And the last one? It was a close-up of me standing outside room 812, holding the envelope I'd found earlier. My blood ran cold. Someone was watching me, tracking my every move. But who? And why? I spent the rest of the night pacing around the house, jumping at every little sound. When Jenna came downstairs around 7 a.m., yawning and stretching like nothing was wrong, I couldn't even look at her. "You okay?" she asked, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "Yeah," I lied, my voice tight. She tilted her head, studying me. "You sure? You look like you haven't slept." "I've got a lot on my mind," I said, which wasn't technically a lie. She nodded and sat down at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone while sipping her coffee. I couldn't help but notice how relaxed she seemed, like she wasn't hiding anything at all. But that just made it worse. If she was hiding something, she was damn good at it. After she left for work, I called Ryan. "I think I'm being followed," I blurted out as soon as he picked up. There was a long pause. "What are you talking about?" I told him everything, the late-night visitor, the photos of me outside the hotel, the words soon scrawled across the envelope. "This is getting insane, Mike," he said, his voice tense. "You need to go to the cops." "And tell them what?" I snapped. "That my wife might be cheating on me, and someone's leaving cryptic notes and stalking me? They'd laugh me out of the station." Ryan sighed. "Okay, then you need to find out who's behind this yourself. There's no way this is random. Someone has a reason for dragging you into this." That's when it hit me, Mark. The photos, the warnings, the phone calls, they all pointed back to him. He was the common denominator in all of this. "I'm going to confront him," I said. "Mike, don't be stupid," Ryan warned. "If he's behind this, you think he's just going to admit it? You don't even know what you're walking into." But I wasn't listening. I hung up, grabbed my car keys, and drove straight to Jenna's office. Mark's office was on the top floor, with a ridiculous view of the city. I barged in without knocking, ignoring the receptionist's protests. He was sitting at his desk, scrolling through his phone, and looked up in surprise when I walked in. "Mike," he said, flashing that too smooth smile. "What a surprise. What brings you here?" I shut the door behind me. "We need to talk." "About what?" he asked, leaning back in his chair like he didn't have a care in the world. I pulled out the photos I'd taken at the hotel and slammed them on his desk. "About this." He glanced at the photos, then back at me, his expression unreadable. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "I've been getting calls, photos, messages, all pointing to you and Jenna. Someone's trying to tell me you're involved in something, and I want to know what the hell it is." Mark's smile faded, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, unease. I don't know what you're talking about, he said carefully. Bullshit! I shouted, slamming my fist on the desk. If you're messing with me, you'd better come clean right now. Mark stood up, his calm facade cracking. Listen to me, Mike. I have no idea who's sending you those things, but if I were you, I'd stop digging. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. His words hung in the air like a threat, and for a moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. I left his office without another word, my mind racing. The real question is, how far am I willing to go to find out the truth? I've reached the point where nothing feels real anymore. My life is unraveling faster than I can keep up, and after tonight, I'm not sure if I even know who I am, or who Jenna is. Let me start from the beginning. After the confrontation with Mark, I knew I couldn't just sit around waiting for the next cryptic message or late-night visitor. His warning, "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into," played on a loop in my head. He wasn't just brushing me off. There was weight behind his words, almost like he was scared. I decided it was time to take the risk. I'd held back from searching Jenna's laptop before, thinking it was too invasive. But now, the gloves were off. Jenna left for her networking dinner around 6 p.m., which I no longer believed for a second. The moment she was gone, I went into her office and booted up her laptop. I didn't know her password, but I'd seen her type it enough times to guess our daughter's birthday. It worked. Her desktop was cluttered with work files, spreadsheets, presentations, the kind of boring corporate stuff she always talked about at dinner. I combed through them for nearly an hour, finding nothing that set off alarm bells. I was starting to feel like an idiot when I noticed a folder tucked away in the corner, labeled with just one word, personal. My pulse quickened as I clicked on it. Inside were dozens of files, mostly photos, some of Emily, some of us together as a family. Normal stuff. But near the bottom, there was a single document that stood out. It was titled Project Ascend. What the hell is this? I muttered under my breath. I opened it, expecting some boring work proposal. Instead, my stomach dropped. It was a contract between Jenna and Mark. The document detailed some kind of agreement about her career, but it wasn't normal. The language was vague, full of legal jargon, but the gist of it was clear. Jenna had promised to secure specific objectives for Mark in exchange for her promotion. It didn't outright say what those objectives were, but there were veiled references to maintaining discretion and removing obstacles to advancement. Even worse, there was a payment schedule attached. Payments, read it. As in money. Mark had been depositing sums into an account under Jenna's name every month for the past year. My mind was spinning. Was she embezzling? Blackmailing him? Or was he paying her off for something even worse? At the bottom of the contract was a line that froze me in place. In the event of exposure, all parties will deny involvement. Any liabilities fall solely on Jenna M. My hands were shaking as I scrolled down to the final page. There, in black and white, was Jenna's signature. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at that contract. The woman I'd married, the mother of my child, wasn't just hiding something, she was part of something big. Something dangerous. But it didn't end there. Tucked away in the same folder was another document, a list of names. Some of them I recognized from Jenna's company, but most were unfamiliar. Beside each name was a short note. Lisa M. Compliance liability. Dan K. Financial irregularities. Mike T. Remain unaware. My heart stopped when I saw my own name. Remain unaware? What the hell did that mean? I couldn't sit still anymore. I printed out the files, stuffed them into an envelope, and locked them in my office drawer. If Jenna came home and found out what I'd seen, I didn't know what she'd do. Jenna got home around midnight, and for the first time, I couldn't even fake civility. She walked in, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world, but I could barely look at her. "You're still up?" she asked, kicking off her heels. "Yeah," I said flatly. Couldn't sleep. She hesitated, her smile faltering. Is everything okay? You've been acting weird lately. For a second, I thought about confronting her. I wanted to scream, to shove the papers in her face and demand answers. But something in her expression stopped me, like she already knew I was onto her. Just tired, I muttered, brushing past her and heading to bed. This morning I called Ryan. I found something, I said, my voice shaking. What is it? I told him everything, the contract, the payments, the list of names. When I finished, there was silence on the other end of the line. Ryan? Mike, he finally said, his voice low. You need to get out of that house. What? Why? Just listen to me, he said urgently. Whatever Jen is involved in, it's not just about you and Mark. It's bigger than that. And if she finds out you've been snooping. Before he could finish, the line went dead. That was 6 hours ago, and I haven't heard from Ryan since. His phone goes straight to voicemail, and I'm starting to freak out. Jen has been acting normal all day, but I can feel the tension in the air. Every time she looks at me, I feel like she's watching, waiting for something. I don't know what's coming next, Reddit, but I can feel it. This isn't just about cheating anymore. This is something darker. And I'm terrified I've only scratched the surface. After Ryan's call cut off, I tried reaching him again and again. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. Panic started to set in. He'd never ghost me like this, especially after the urgency in his voice. Something was wrong. Jenna left the house around noon, claiming she had a strategy meeting at work. I didn't believe her for a second. She hadn't even bothered to ask if I wanted lunch, a small but telling break in her usual routine. As soon as she left, I grabbed the envelope with the files and headed to Ryan's place. His apartment is only about 15 minutes away, but it felt like the longest drive of my life. When I got there, his car was in the driveway, but the blinds were drawn, and no lights were on. I knocked on the door. No answer. Ryan? I called, banging harder. Still nothing. I circled around to the back, hoping to find a way in, and that's when I noticed the sliding glass door was slightly ajar. My heart pounded as I pushed it open and stepped inside. The place was a wreck. Chairs knocked over, papers scattered everywhere, a lamp shattered on the floor. But Ryan was nowhere to be found. And then I saw it, a message scrawled on the wall in red marker, right above his desk. Stay out of it. I backed out of there as fast as I could, my hands shaking. Someone had been here, probably just before I arrived. Someone who wanted me to know that I was in over my head. When I got back to the car, I locked the doors and sat there for a few minutes, trying to calm down. My first instinct was to call the police, but what would I even tell them? That my wife might be involved in something shady, and now my best friend was missing? Without proof, they'd think I was crazy. But I wasn't ready to give up. If Jenna thought she could hide whatever this was from me, she was wrong. That night, I decided to set a trap. Jenna came home around 7 p.m., her expression unreadable. She kissed me on the cheek and went straight to the shower, like she didn't have time for small talk. I waited until she was in the bathroom, then grabbed her phone from the nightstand. I wasn't even surprised to see it was locked. She'd changed her passcode recently, but I'd caught a glimpse of her typing it one night. 6 digits. Emily's birthday plus the year we met. I unlocked it and scrolled through her messages, trying to stay calm. Most of the conversations were mundane, texts with coworkers, friends, family. But then I found a thread with a contact listed only as C. The messages were weird. C. Did you confirm the transfer? Jenna. Yes, everything is ready. No complications so far. C. Good. We'll move forward once he's out of the way. Jenna. Understood. Let me know if you hear from Mark. I stared at the screen, my stomach churning. He's out of the way. Who were they talking about? Mark? Ryan? Me? Before I could dig deeper, I heard the water shut off. I quickly locked the phone and put it back on the nightstand, just as Jenna came out of the bathroom in her robe. "What are you doing?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. "Just checking emails," I lied, holding up my phone. She didn't say anything, but I could feel her watching me as she got dressed. After she went to bed, I made my move. I grabbed the spare key to her office and slipped inside, determined to find something, anything, that would give me answers. It didn't take long. In the bottom drawer of her desk, hidden under a stack of old files, was a burner phone. The messages on it were even worse than the ones on her regular phone. Most were with C, but there were also conversations with other names I didn't recognize. Some of the messages made my blood run cold. "He's starting to suspect. Keep him distracted until the weekend. Mark is becoming a liability. Handle it." Handle it? What the hell did that mean? I took photos of everything and put the phone back exactly where I found it. As I locked the office door behind me, I felt like I was being watched. The next morning, I got another call from the block number. "Hello?" I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you see it now?" the distorted voice asked. "See what?" I snapped. "What's going on? Who are you?" "You're not ready for the truth," they said, their tone almost sad. "But it's coming, whether you're ready or not. Watch her, Mike. Tonight." "Watch her where?" I demanded, but they hung up before I could get an answer. Jenna left the house around 8 p.m., saying she had another work meeting. This time, I followed her. She didn't go to the office. She didn't go to a restaurant or a bar. She drove to a remote warehouse on the edge of town. I parked a safe distance away and watched as she got out of the car, glanced around, and disappeared inside. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might burst. I couldn't stay in the car. Not this time. I crept toward the warehouse, sticking to the shadows, and peered through a dusty window. What I saw inside made my blood run cold. Jenna wasn't alone. She was standing in a circle of people: Mark, some other faces I recognized from her office, and a few strangers. On the table in front of them were stacks of documents, cash, and what looked like a gun. Jenna was talking, her voice confident and commanding, but I couldn't make out the words. Then, she pointed at one of the men across the table, and said something that made him freeze. The man stood up, nodded, and walked toward the door, toward me. I bolted back to the car, my mind racing. After the warehouse, I didn't sleep. I stayed up all night, replaying what I'd seen over and over in my head. The burner phone, the cryptic texts, the pile of cash, Jenna standing there like some kind of mob boss. And the worst part? I still didn't understand what the hell was going on. The next morning, Jenna acted like nothing had happened. She kissed me goodbye on her way to work, while I sat there at the breakfast table, my mind a million miles away. I'd reached my breaking point. I couldn't keep playing this game anymore. I decided to confront her that evening. When Jenna got home, I was sitting in the living room, the envelope of photos and printed text spread out on the coffee table. She froze in the doorway, her eyes darting to the evidence. "What's this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You tell me," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Because I'm done pretending, Jenna. I know about Mark. I know about the meetings. The burner phone. The warehouse. Everything." Her face went pale, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. She tried to speak, but no words came out. "I followed you," I continued, my voice calm but trembling with rage. "I saw you last night. The documents. The money. The gun. What the hell is going on, Jenna? Who are you?" She sat down across from me, her hands shaking. "Mike, you weren't supposed to see that." "No kidding," I said, my voice rising. "Start talking, or I'm walking out that door and calling the cops." For the next hour, Jenna laid it all out, and I wish I could say I felt better knowing the truth. I didn't. It turns out the deal wasn't just about her promotion. It was about leverage. Mark, her boss, had been running a scheme for years, embezzling money from the company, laundering it through fake vendors, and funneling it into offshore accounts. Jenna found out about it accidentally, stumbling across a flagged transaction in a financial report. Instead of reporting him, she saw an opportunity. "I was tired of being overlooked," she said, her voice trembling. "Tired of working twice as hard as everyone else and getting nowhere. Mark promised me the promotion if I helped him keep the books clean. He said it was just temporary, that no one would ever find out. But you didn't stop there, did you?" I said coldly. "No," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "It spiraled out of control. He started asking for more, covering up other things, moving money into accounts I didn't recognize. And then there were other favors." My stomach churned. "What kind of favors?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "It wasn't supposed to mean anything. It was just part of the deal." And that's when I knew. "Tell me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Mike, please. Tell me," I shouted, slamming my fist on the table. She broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. "I slept with him," she choked out. "More than once. He said it would solidify the arrangement, make sure we both had something to lose if it ever came out." It felt like the ground had opened up beneath me. "You slept with him," I repeated, the words tasting like poison. "You cheated on me, for a job? For money?" "It wasn't about the money," she cried. "It was about power, about getting what I deserved after being stepped on for so long." I couldn't listen anymore. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to breathe through the rage and betrayal that threatened to consume me. "So what now?" I asked finally. "You think this is salvageable? That we can just move past this?" She didn't answer, and that silence said more than any words ever could. I walked out of the house that night, not knowing if I'd ever come back. I drove aimlessly for hours, replaying everything she'd said, everything she'd done. The lies, the manipulation, the infidelity. Ryan called me while I was parked at a gas station, staring blankly at the dashboard. "Mike," he said, his voice cautious. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted. "Not even a little." "I don't want to make this worse," he said hesitantly. "But you should know something. Mark's been arrested. Fraud, embezzlement, all of it. It's all over the news." I didn't say anything. "Your wife's name wasn't mentioned," he added. "Yet." When I got home, Jenna was sitting on the couch, her face pale and drawn. "It's over," she said quietly. "Mark's been arrested. They're going to come for me next." "Good," I said flatly. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. "Mike, I know I can't fix this, but I need you to know, I love you. I always have. Everything I did for us." I laughed bitterly. "For us? You destroyed us, Jenna. You lied to me, betrayed me, cheated on me. You sold your soul for a promotion and dragged me into your mess. Don't you dare say it was for us." She didn't argue. She just sat there, crying softly, as I packed a bag and walked out the door. It's been 2 weeks since that night. Jenna's facing criminal charges, though her lawyers are working on some kind of deal to keep her out of prison. Mark, meanwhile, is going down in flames. As for me, I'm staying with Ryan for now, trying to figure out what comes next. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust someone again, let alone rebuild my life. But one thing's for sure, the woman I married is gone, and I don't think I ever really knew her. Take it from me, Reddit. If something feels off, trust your gut. Because sometimes the truth is worse than you ever imagined.